What statistically improbable thing happened to you? I received my heart transplant after being on the list for only 7 hours. Riding my bicycle on a commercial fishing pier. As a kid, I lost control and rode off the edge with a 20 feet drop to exposed rocks at low tide. I tried to stop myself going over by planting my feet on the edge of the pier, but I knew my bike was too heavy. Somehow the bike stopped halfway over at a 45-degree angle. However, now the seat was in the small of my back, preventing me from getting off, and I couldn't budge it at all to get the bike back up. A fisherman finally ran over to help me, and we decided he would pull me as hard as he could, and I'd let the bike fall. I jumped to the side as he pulled me back to the pier, and it worked. However, my bike was still there, not moving at all. When I examined what had happened, there was a piece of rebar sticking out from the edge of the pier, bent upwards in an L shape, and it passed diagonally through the spokes of my front tire and completely wedged my bike in place. It was the only spot on the 300 feet long pier with anything sticking out. I most certainly did not stop myself and my bike from going over. I have been hit in the head by live squirrels 3 times in my life, each on separate occasions. Did you have a hat that looked like an acorn? Lol, no, but I do always wear a hat. Many years ago I had a terrible day where my then GF broke up with me. Then I did terribly in a final exam for a college class. Then I lost my wallet. And finally, as I was doing the Charlie Brown sad walk back home, some random branch broke off a tree as I was walking on the sidewalk underneath it, and the damn thing fell on top of me and hit me square across the shoulder and knocked me to the ground. I just burst out laughing because it was so ridiculous. After losing an AirPod while skiing, I was able to find it the next run. I lost an earring diving in a deep mountain creek. I paddled in the water over where it fell out and I shouted, "Watch this," to my GF, and dove down 10 feet to the bottom, and blindly grabbed a bunch of tiny river rocks in my fist, and swam to the surface, and held my fist high triumphantly. I swam to the bank to my GF, and opened my hand, and it was there with the river rocks. Got attacked by a robin in the morning, then attacked by a hawk 3 hours later. Weird day. I was on a road trip with my cousins in the 80s. One of them kept playing the same song over and over by rewinding the tape and playing it again. The song was "Another One Bites the Dust." After 3 plays in a row, the driver pulls out the tape, says "enough," and turned on the radio. Sure enough, that song was playing on the radio right then. That's when you just throw up your hands and let the car swerve into a ditch. Dropped a glass while washing 6 wine glasses. It hit another glass, and shattered glass flew up out of the sink, hit me in the wrist, resulting in an arterial bleed. Home alone. House sitting. Cell service not available due to a big service fail in the area. Managed to stumble my way off the acreage to the nearest road, and a driver was able to call for police and ambulance. Too close. Too damn close. I lost consciousness moments after hailing car for help. If she hadn't stopped, edit for clarification, to answer questions and to dispel wacky assumptions. You folks are kind. And some of you folks are wildly accusatory. Sigh 1. Assuming I was drunk on wine, and drunk on the power of using a different wine glass for each drink I had. Lol. I don't drink. The homeowners had had company the night before they left. Hence, the wine glasses. They wouldn't put their expensive, shipped home from Italy during last trip, their glasses in the dishwasher and ask me to wash them. This happened about 4 hours after they left to go to their summer house. 2. There was a massive cell service outage. No, it shouldn't have happened. Read about the 2022 Rogers communication outage. Yeah, I should link it, but I don't know how to do so properly. Apologies to, no, they don't have a landline. 3. Yes, it was an arterial bleed. I knew it was bad, because I've watched ER, and because the blood was spurting up and out all over the counter, the floor, me, the stove, the hanging pot rack, etc. 4. I'm a fainter. I quickly slumped down to the floor, having attempted a tourniquet while repeatedly calling 911. My dominant hand was injured. I'm a fainter. It was bad. I said to myself out loud, you are not going to be one of those people that dies in a stupid effing household accident. Now get up and walk to the end of the property and hope a car goes by. 5. I did get up while putting pressure on my wrist and dropping saturated tea towels and adding new tea towels. The bloodstain trail showed I was not steady on my feet and that I apparently tried to get in the car and drive. Blood trail continued down paved drive but also went in circles and onto the grass as I apparently fought against fainting, losing consciousness. 6. First car that drove by wouldn't stop. I can't say I blame them. Woman covered in blood stumbling. They may have been afraid. Car that stopped used in car comms. OnStar? Apple? I don't know. To get help. But she wouldn't get out of her car until I guess she was sure this wasn't a domestic violence incident and she wasn't putting herself in danger. She would not touch me or help to apply pressure. 7. Just as I was passing out, and if you're a fainter, like I am, then you know when you're going to faint and you know when you've reached the point where you can't do anything to stop it. A woman from another car ran up to me and I asked her to keep pressure on, which she did, using her bare hands and a small rag over my blood-soaked tea towel. She saved my life. She didn't have to do that, and I'm eternally grateful to her. No. I don't know who she is. 8. Police entered the house and cleared it. Apparently believed that this was a possible domestic violence incident and thought the perp or other victim, or that I was the perp and there was a victim of my actions, might be in the house. They wrote that the scene matched the story, or something to that effect. The woman who stopped first must have told them I said I'd hurt myself washing dishes, which I'd told her in an effort to get her out of her car and applying pressure to the bleed. 9. Doctors in ER asked me what happened. Told them. I don't know if they believed me or not, but as per normal protocol, they did ask me if I was safe at home. My license and health card showed I did not live in the area, so maybe then they believed I actually was just the house sitter. 10. I was in the hospital for about 6-8 hours. Went back to the acreage. Went to bed. Slept for about 12 hours. Cleaned the blood and glass up the next day. It was bad. Very bad. 11. I no longer use glass containers. I use only plastic cups. I'm still a non-drinker. I still house sit. I do not hand wash glasses. Ever. Under any circumstances. And when hearing a glass break I start to cry. Pathetic, but true. 12. I suggested to the homeowners that they get a landline. They did not. 13. From time to time, I still have some discomfort in my wrist. Also some numbness. I just rested for a day or two and then it's fine. Yes, I have a scar. Not very noticeable. 14. I had a second arterial bleed in the hospital when the resident stitching me up nicked my artery as they tried to do the repair. It happens. At least I was in the hospital. 15. The ER docs were absolutely amazed that I'd walked to the end of the property and gotten help all by myself. One doctor said, "You saved yourself." Any lingering doubt was likely cleared up by police report of scene and blood trail. 16. Did this change my outlook on life? Yes and no. I'm less fearful in many ways, and more inclined to say yes to new experiences and adventures. I have developed a deep-rooted fear of glassware. No joke. I won't wash glassware. I was already aware of the random nature of life and death as my parents died when I was young, and I've had other random shit happen to me. So, I get it. Life is random. Life is fragile. In the face of so much bad luck, I've been lucky. I'm still here. Still house sitting. Take care, friends. And be careful washing those damn glasses. Edited for brevity and to satisfy someone's unquenchable thirst for paragraphs. Not me, but a friend. He was a merchant mariner. Lived here in Virginia Beach. He was always calling and texting, posting pics from around the world. One time he'd been out a while. We knew he was heading to Dubai, but didn't know where he'd be after that. 4 months go by, nobody's heard from him. His neighbor, who I was friends with, gets married and goes to Thailand for his honeymoon. He texts me one day and said, "You aren't gonna believe this shit." He said he asked a local where a good local spot to eat was that tourists wouldn't be at. Guy takes him 30 minutes from the beach to some dive bar restaurant with no sign, no clearly marked entrance. He said it looked so shady he was afraid he was about to be robbed and killed. He goes in, and it's a legitimate restaurant. He eats, drinks some beers, goes to the bathroom. Out walks my friend, so he took a pic and sent it to me to confirm he's okay. Imagine taking a flight several thousands of miles away, getting away from the tourist areas and going into a local dive bar, and running into your effing next door neighbor you haven't seen in months. It's wild. Husband and I visited our old hometown, and went to the used bookstore we used to frequent. I picked up a familiar title in nostalgia and flipped it open to find a school student's ID card. The name and photo on the ID? My husband. Turns out his mom had donated books to that store many years before we all moved away from that area. He must have been using it as a bookmark and forgotten. It's not so surprising considering we used to live in that area, but the ID was nearly 10 years old by the time we found it. That book was sitting on the shelf for nearly a decade untouched, waiting for me to come along and pick it up. Bizarre. My dad's birthday was 3-3, my brother is 6-6, mine is 7-7, and my son is 11-11. Took a summertime organic chemistry class. 1 month of classes 5 days a week, then a 3-week break, then another month for the second semester. After the break I reached into the box in my closet to grab the textbook where I had hidden it and felt a sharp stab in the corner of my little finger at the cuticle of the nail bed. I was running late to class so I thought nothing of it. I became ill with profuse sweating and nausea during the day, then violently ill into the night with vomiting and diarrhea and swollen adenoids. Went to the ER the next morning and they ran every test they could. 2 days later I started having trouble breathing and went to the ER again. My heart was swollen up half again at normal size, my lungs were swollen, and my kidneys too. Doctors kept me for 2 days with batteries of tests and after 2 days let me go as everything was going back to normal. Then I began sitting what appeared to be a white paste, and this went on for 2 days. At the end of which I noticed that my tongue and the lining of my mouth was almost purple in color, and I had a red streak from the tip of my little finger that during the day extended up to my bicep by that evening. Went back to the ER, and the doctor said he had no clue, but maybe I had been bitten by something venomous. I then thought about the day that the symptoms started and went to that box in my closet, and sure enough there was a little black spider in the box. I asked one of my professors about it and he told me the county health department had a entomology office not far from campus, so I captured the little spider and went on over. The doctor there told me it was just a grass spider and there was absolutely no way it could have envenomated me for 3 reasons. He said they have curved mandibles so they can't hit the human skin. They have soft mandibles so even when they manage to strike the skin the mandible will turn and not break the surface, but most importantly their venom, which digests the proteins that stretch between the cell walls of animals, gets bound to platelets in the human bloodstream and is almost instantly neutralized. I showed him where the bite was, as evidenced by the red streak, and sure enough it was in the corner of the nail bed, in very soft tissue of the cuticle, where the spider could actually get a strike. He asked if I had some kind of platelet disorder. I made a quick call to the cancer research hospital I worked at in the evenings at that time, and sure enough I had donated platelets the evening before being bitten. A process where they put you on a platelet phoresis machine and extract almost all of your platelets for donation to kids who are in need of them due to having low counts from the chemotherapy. It was at this point that the entomologist started hyperventilating and asking all kinds of questions. He was low-key freaking out. He kept repeating that this was a billion to 1 event, and he'd never heard of it before. He ended up getting me to sign some papers, so he could have my medical records, and published a paper on it. Fun for him but not so much for me. The white paste that I pooped for 3 days was the epithelial lining of my entire digestive tract, which came out as white paste-looking individual cells. Edit, as it has been asked many times in the comments, I do not possess a copy or link to the paper the entomologist wrote. Nor do I remember which journal it was in. This happened in the early 90s, and may have never even been out on the internet. Also I don't know if that journal even still exists. Can't be that many people reading journals on entomology. Also he was a PhD in entomology and not a medical doctor, so it wasn't in a medical journal. I saw an ad on a Pepsi case at a grocery store for a text to win contest to see Beyoncé in concert. I figured why not, and sent a text and was entered. A few weeks later I got a text back from the same number that told me I won the grand prize. I ended up winning 2 tickets to Beyoncé's Mrs. Carter World Tour in Brooklyn and $500 on a Visa gift card. Used the $500 for some bus tickets and a hotel down the street from Barclays. The seats were awesome, and it is something I'll never forget. I underwent a surgical procedure called a stapectomy to improve the significant hearing loss in my good ear. Instead, I ended up completely deaf. My surgical ENT said this has only happened to 5 patients in the US. He was doing research to try to help me afterwards. I don't know how true it is, but hey, lucky me. While attempting to get medical treatment, the DR's office ran a pharmacy report on my medical history and prescriptions. My terminally ill brother, whose full name was only 2 letters different from mine and we had the same address and phone number, was on a shitload of narcotics at the time, and through their search they pulled up his report and thought it was mine. They yelled at me and kicked me out of the office saying I was just looking for drugs. I was mortified and very upset, and they wouldn't listen to me when I said it was my brother and not me. I ended up calling the pharmacy board and they called the doctor and explained that since we had the same address, phone number and an extremely similar name, they had to search by social security number. The doctor felt horrible and gave me free treatment, and now he tells that story at conferences he goes to. It was crazy. So of course, I had something happen to me that the doctors or nurses had never come across before. The doctor shared with me the tales of the conferences he spoke at, and said none of the doctors there knew it was possible for data from 2 people to be included in the same pharmacy report either. I guess they do now. Went to a county fair and found a season pass on the ground with my name on it. 4 people in my area with the same name, and I know 2 of them. What are the odds of that? Hit by lightning. Sort of, indirectly. Lightning hit a tree near the wellhead while I was doing dishes. Exploded the tree, fried the well, and gave me a jolt that made my metal fillings so hot they burned my tongue. Other than that, I was fine. I have all 10 childhood aces. I have grandparents such on both sides. I have drug addicts on both sides. Severe mental illness on both sides. Somehow I didn't end up dead, commit such, overdosed, in a ditch, or without any technical extreme mental illness. I like to think video games and music keep me away from that stuff. Despite what my elementary school and middle school teachers might have believed. I got a college degree in aerospace engineering, one of the hardest degree programs from a semi-decent school. Pretty much beat every statistic in regard to my early childhood outcomes. Make no mistake, all the stuff I went through has left me emotionally crippled, but I mostly get by. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's read this. I really appreciate all the kind words. Also, I'm by no means thriving. It's a constant battle every single day to pick myself up and get up. My son died at 11 months old for 2.5 minutes. I got to hold him as he took his first breaths, hold him while he took his last breaths, and then got to hold him as he took his first breaths again. It's something as a mother I don't wish on anyone. It was by far the scariest night of my life. I'll never forget it. New Year's Eve 2007 in Fairbanks, AK. My son statistically was not supposed to survive the pregnancy. I nearly lost him 3 times in the first trimester. I started going into active labor at 20 weeks, got put on strict bed rest, and then developed preeclampsia. I also had hyperemesis through the whole pregnancy. I couldn't even hold down water and needed daily IV fluid and nutrition. I was 17 pounds lighter than my pre-pregnancy weight when I delivered him at 39 weeks. By all of that, he shouldn't be here now. To make things even weirder, the doctor that kept me from losing him in my pregnancy was the doctor that treated him in Alaska. A completely different hospital, all the way across the country from where we first met. It felt like divine intervention to see his face, and I knew deep in my soul my son was going to be okay. My son is a happy, healthy teenager now. I am sitting here crying thinking about that night. It definitely still feels like a gut punch when I think about it. Got left a written message to call a girl, mistakenly called another girl instead with the same name. We've been married for 14 years. My friend was going to Ireland to visit her extended family for the first time and invited me along. We had a great time meeting her aunts and uncles, seeing the beautiful sights, etc. On our last night in Ireland, the family all got together for dinner, some rousing laughs, and a general awesome time. Her cousin had been traveling that week, and was only in town for one night, and so she and her boyfriend swung by to say hi and bye. They left for the airport to Nick and we went to sleep, getting up at 4 AM to catch our own flight to Nick. 2 days later, I had to be in Nick for a job interview. I wasn't familiar with the Wall Street area, so I went extra early just in case I couldn't find it. But as luck would have it, I found it with no problem and had 40 minutes to kill. I had no idea what to do, considered getting food but didn't want to risk staining my clothes or having an upset stomach or anything, so I wandered around a little until I stumbled on the Barnes & Noble bookstore. Thinking this was perfect, I went in and walked slowly through the store looking for somewhere to sit. There weren't any sort of private spaces on the first floor, so I found the escalator and started heading up. As I approach the halfway mark, I see a young couple going down on the escalator. As our eyes meet, we recognize each other, and at the exact same time, as we both met halfway up down the escalator, we pointed to each other and turned as we passed each other, mouths open in shock. My friend's cousin and her boyfriend. 2 nights ago I had met them for the first time and we had been laughing and sharing food and wine in her aunt's house in Ireland. And now here we are, crossing paths exactly halfway on the escalator. A moment sooner or later and we would have completely missed each other. She quickly came back up the escalator and we chatted about how crazy this coincidence was. I nailed the job interview too because I just felt this surge of right time right place-ness that meant I was supposed to be there. I was so full of confidence and optimism, I made the whole panel of interviewers laugh and talk comfortably with me and got the job. My college advisor in high school did some bullshit ass calculations on his computer, flipped the screen around and it said I have a 1.34% chance of getting into the school I wanted. Guess who made it in that bitch? And I got the degree now too.